Hey, John. Generally, I think this is a good start. I think this is a wonderful location, just rich with history and culture. So this should be a pretty straightforward, pretty. I mean, research for this project is not going to be difficult whatsoever. Um, so you've got your introduction. You talk about the location and the fact that um, it has hosted Olympic Games in the past. That's huge. Good job. Culture, you talk about the culture a little bit, and then you say, well, maybe there's something in here. And Gustav Klimt is Austrian, so maybe we could use him. And I think these are really like shotgun approaches. I think that really what we need to do is take this culture and peel back the layers quite a bit deeper. I don't think we have, excuse me, quite enough here. Excuse me. I don't think we have quite enough here to really even make a call yet as to what, could possibly be the visual direction we're going to take. Hey, don't get me wrong. I think it would be cool if you were to be able to use a Gustav Klimt painting as some sort of inspiration for, like, perhaps there's your background pattern right there. That would be very cool. All right, so that's good thinking, really awesome thinking there. So what I want you to do for next week, for the final presentation, is just take this presentation and just pump it up with steroids. Okay, you got stakeholders, you've got this good introduction, that's good. You talk about the culture. Let's really get down to into the culture. And I know this is only a 2-page minimum, but I think you need some good, solid couple of 3 paragraphs on culture, a couple of good, solid paragraphs on culture. Brief history, the major things, events, or maybe some sort of major things of importance, whether they're geological or historical or cultural, and see if we can't unearth those, so maybe we can consider those for a possibility in our visual solution. So then you've got the Klimt, so that's another possibility there. We could possibly use some Klimt elements as assistance in our visual direction. Stakeholders, yeah, you want to mention what these have to do with the actual event too. Okay, so why is the International Olympic Committee a stakeholder? Well, for example, they are the governing body, so all rules and regulations must be in compliance with International Olympic Committee rules and regulations, of course. Okay, so that's really important, but mention that for the sake of the presentation. All right, I always tell students, when you're putting a presentation together, do so as though, just assume that the viewer has no clue what you're talking about, and that's how thorough you want to be. So you should be able to extract any one of these paragraphs and understand what, out of context, at least understand what it's talking about. Okay, products, fine. I think that's good. I think that using this type of stuff to define the possibility in some of the products. Yeah, you're thinking, I mean, this is introductory thinking, but yes, you're along the way. Let's expound that section a little bit. Communication, that's good. This is really good. There's a bunch of other things you're going to think of between now and next week that you're going to be able to add to that. Plus, with your research, that'll be great. Infrastructure is good, but there's something you really need to address here in the infrastructure, and that is, let me look at my notes here. Okay, I've got 2 notes on the infrastructure, and that is looking at previous games, event venues, and transportation and lodging. Okay, so as far as infrastructure goes, event venues, I know you mentioned that Olympics were held there, but that was quite some time ago. And is it possible that those venues are no longer relevant, or they are, technologically irrelevant, as far as, whatever the modern building techniques for those long ski jumps are? I'm sure codes and things have changed. So make sure that is something that you can possibly use. And that will just bolster the attractiveness of this location for that particular event. Also, look at the infrastructure for your transportation and lodging. I know you mentioned some things about the trams and where it's located in the 12-mile straight distance of near Germany, and that's awesome. There's potential in there. I see potential in there in really exploiting this vast area for lodging and transportation. Again, assisting in just the attractiveness of this location for the event. Okay, so then we have, I think your introduction is good, but I think that you really need to talk more about past Olympic events. And we really have to start to expose some culture. Look at things like patterns of textiles, patterns of clothing. Indigenous peoples, you typically have clothing, and look at the colors and the patterns in that. Look at things like, of course, the mountains. That's an obvious one. Just look at the area, look at the peoples, look at their music, look at their culture, look at their art, and see if you can, if there's anything obvious in there that you can use visually, or if there's something maybe not so obvious that you can extract and cultivate, so to speak. Excuse me. I really, really want to know in your paper next week, I really want to know what your plan is and how your visual direction is going to go. I mean, you saw the introductory videos. We have, a logo, and then typically a pattern, some patterns to use and background patterns to use in your different collateral materials. But I want to hear a plan. I want you to tell us about your plan, okay? Why did you pick these certain visual aspects, and how do you intend on using them, and give us the history and the intent as well as the objectives of using those visuals. Include a mission statement. That's super, super, super important. That's really important. A mission statement, a thesis, as it were, as to what is this project? What are you doing? Okay, and what are you doing in the project, and what are you doing in this phase of the project? And then you can talk about, how that is a foundation, or in other words, how that supports your future phases with the project. Okay, so I think that's pretty self-explanatory. But and again, I said earlier, you got a great start. Boy, it would be so cool if you could do something with this pattern with Gustav. One of my favorite painters, boy, I'll tell you, that would be really cool. I mean, you don't even have to use that same color. You could just use this as inspiration, maybe for a background. It could be significant about the winds. I know Innsbruck is that perfectly suited for Winter Olympics, meaning that there's going to be some cool winds and some cold attributes, again, that you might be able to exploit visually in your solutions. Okay, sorry to ramble on, but that's where we need to be by next week. So if you have any questions at all, John, and you probably don't. You worked very well on your own, but let me help if you do have any questions or comments at anything. If you want me to look at anything, I'd love to get in on your process. All right, thanks very much, John.